Welcome to Something to Wrestle with. Bruce Prichard. Well, you know.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
I agree with that guy on the tweeter machine that says that we need more of the open.
We need the whole song every week.
Yeah. You know what it is, Conrad? Is it's lollygaggers.
Yes.
They lollygag. They show up whenever they want to start to produce the show.
Yes.
They don't have our notes in there. They say, "Oh, you wanted notes? Oh, you wanted to know what you're talking about today? Well, I've got them." They're lollygaggers. You know what lollygaggers do?
What do lollygaggers do, Bruce?
They lollygag.
Oh.
They lollygag.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a simple question, man. Hey, you know, where the reads for this? This one read because you're a professional,
right?
I'm a prima donna and a star. You're a professional, but yet the people that help us try to be professional just go, "Oh, I don't know." I mean, just say something about it and put wrestle on there.
Well, no, in fairness, simple. We have a really big team here at the show, Something to Wrestle, and we've got really a lot of hard workers. What we have is one, I guess you would call him lollygagger.
Lollygagger.
Yes.
He lollygags. And if I knew how to say lollygagger in Espanol, maybe he would understand. Lollygagger. Okay, how's that? It's a lollygagger.
Yeah. Anytime I hear that voice, I just think of, we had lunch one time.
Yeah, we did.
We don't talk about current stuff, but Bruce, I'm so excited. It's Royal Rumble weekend. We are on the heels of the 30th anniversary of Monday Night Raw. What a big show that was. Again, we're not talking about current stuff, but man, how fun was it, you know, to think back that the last big anniversary, Raw 25, you came back to the WWE for the first time in a WWE locker room in a long time, wearing the old Brother Love suit. Had to go get a new one.
Had to get a new one, yeah, because the other one's in Galveston Bay somewhere floating around, and fucking probably some guy has it all tied up and is cleaning his fish knives with them and everything because, hey, this will be a nice white, horrible polyester suit. I could use this to clean my fishing knives with, or clean my boat with, or something.
5 years later, life looks a little different, doesn't it?
A little bit. Wow. I know. It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. It was quite a show, man. It's hard to believe, you know, Monday Night Raw, 30 years. Where does the time
go? I don't know. And there were only, as we were on the headset the other night and counting off the people that were there, and I think there was only 3 of us that were actually there for the very first one. But then later on, I got to reminiscing with someone else about the Royal Rumble and the first Royal Rumble, and how the first Royal Rumble was the first live television show that I had ever written by myself. And that was in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We went live on the USA Network. And I wrote it as if it was just a live pay-per-view.
Right.
Like no commercial breaks and not really timing it to really care about it. And holy cow, what a runaway train that one was. And there were only 2 of us that were there for that. So it was an interesting reminiscing session in which, you know, we talked about Royal Rumble and Raw. And it seems like at the beginning of the year, at the start of New Year's, new things begin. And it's time to reinvent and go.
Well, I can't wait to see what happens this weekend. I'm going to be hosting a little viewing party, and me and my pals are already saying, oh, it could be this guy, it could be that guy, and what about this? And that's what makes the Royal Rumble so fun. I am curious, though, when you said, hey, there were only 3 of us that were there for the first Monday Night Raw. Off the top of my head, there's you, there's Kevin Dunn. Who's the third one?
Rambo, one of our handheld
Oh wow, okay.
Camera guys, yeah.
Wow, man. Isn't that amazing? To think
Yeah.
of all the folks and just
I
just
hope it was Rambo. I'm pretty sure it was Rambo, yeah.
how about that?
Craziness, right?
Yeah, I'm pumped, man. It's my favorite time of the year
Just
for
blew
WWE.
your mind.
Well, I mean, when you think about how many people that is, especially when there's another name that you thought. Anyway, let's talk about it. Our topic today, celebrating 30 years of Raw. We're going to talk about 30 of the biggest moments in Raw history. In hindsight, would you have ever assumed, would you have ever imagined, could you have ever imagined that Raw would have become the staple of wrestling that it's become? I mean, it's probably, I realize and recognize that SmackDown probably has a bigger audience these days, but it feels like every wrestling fan in the world is familiar with Monday Night Raw.
Well, no, I didn't. I looked at Monday Night Raw. Cable was not the primary focus of our business at that time. And it was something that was great to reach a national audience on a weekly basis. And you had a lot more flexibility, frankly, on cable, but we were still in the syndication business. The idea behind Monday Night Raw being one of let's stop bringing in all this talent to do a talk show on primetime and let's utilize talent that is already on the road that's working on a Monday night. Let's have a show that we can then go live with. A small show, though. We were going to build the studio in the office at the TV studio. There was a warehouse right next to it. Originally, there was some talk about building an arena, a little 500-seat arena that was the Monday night arena that folks in Stanford, New York area could come and visit every single week. That quickly morphed into, no, we need a show place. We need something different. We want to be unique. And we went to the Manhattan Center, and Manhattan Center provided that atmosphere for us. It was completely different. It was, you had balconies coming out, and it was a very, very cool setting that we chose. And the let's save money, that completely went out the window as soon as we said let's run the Manhattan Center. But
Right.
they had a control room in house that really all we had to do was plug in, but it was on the seventh floor. And to get to the seventh floor, you had to obviously take the stairs or elevators. And one of the elevators, the main freight elevator, because there are only two elevators, it was broken. So we had to either walk up every single piece of the ring or you had to put them in the passenger elevator. And that's what we did. And we finally got it all up there.
I'm glad you did. Monday Night Raw now been on the air 30 years. Of course, it replaces primetime wrestling on the USA Network. We got primetime from January of 85 through January of 93. I liked that format. I mean, that's really what I grew up on when I first started watching the WWF. Had a different variety of guests. You know, usually it
Yeah.
was Gorilla Monsoon and Bobby Heenan, but later we had Jesse Ventura in there and Roddy Piper in there, and of course Vince and Hacksaw and Hillbilly Jim and Mr. Perfect. Even Jerry Lawler got in on it. Prime time. Do you think a format like that could work today, or has wrestling just evolved past that concept?
I think a certain type of concept like that, maybe a streaming concept could work today. I don't know that you have the personalities that could carry it off the way that Bobby Heenan and Gorilla Monsoon did.
Right.
They just had chemistry. They just were natural. They were friends. They were what you saw on TV is what you got in real life. So that helped. I don't know of anybody like that really that could pull that off today the way that they did. And the audience is a little more fickle.
Can you sort of talk me through how that transition happened? Of course, we would see on TV December 21st, 1992, Vince would open primetime by saying, primetime is winding down. On January 11th, you're going to see a brand new primetime. As a matter of fact, there won't even be a primetime. Live from New York, it's going to be Monday Night Raw. Now, when he says live from New York, certainly sounds like he's setting up. It's Saturday night. So I understand the Monday night. That works for me. But this isn't something you guys probably just do all on your own, right? Or do you talk to USA about this and discuss, here's what we have in mind? Or what's that whole process like, as best you can recall?
Well, we discussed it with them, but it wasn't really a either or. It was, this is what we're going to do. And we're going to take the studio format and we're going to throw the studio format out. And we are going to deliver a live action show to you that is actually live. So they were excited about it because they just wanted new programming. They wanted constant new programming every single week. And it was an opportunity to create new programming for them without it being rehashed from a taping, TV taping somewhere across the country, what have you, and telling those stories. Now we were going to tell new stories. We were going to create and have new competitive matches, which was something else that was not done in the day, and create a new show for them. We felt it was a better show. We felt it would be something that would be welcomed and that people would really like to see. And they did.
We talked about the creation, the origins of Raw in the archives. So be sure to check that one out for sure over at somethingtowrestle.com. Episode 81 is what you'll want to look for there. Let's start at the beginning. You know, one of my favorite things about this transition is we see Bobby the Brain Heenan react to Vince's announcement that primetime is winding down. Oh, this means I'm out of a job, which is a nice little, I don't know, piece of connective tissue, because they're going to run a pretty fun series of skits about Bobby Heenan trying to get into the first Monday Night Raw. I guess, you know, the number one biggest moment in the history of Raw is the creation of Raw, the very first episode. Take us back to that day. Were you nervous, anxious, excited?
I was anxious that we were going to get the doors open with everything set up that we needed to get set up.
Right.
So there was just so much going on, and you don't anticipate on your very first time into a building that the freight elevator that gets all your equipment up to the 7th floor would break. So that put a, you know, damper on the day, so to speak, to say the least. Then on top of it, all of your staff has got to go up in the elevators and or walk up 7 flights of stairs all day long. So it was a challenge as well. It was, are we going to even get this thing on the air? Are we going to be able to go at 9 o'clock and have a show? So it was fun, but you know, if it came off perfectly, it wouldn't be any fun.
Right. Well, we're trying some new things here. We've got a new theme song, and that song is going to stick with us through 1997, of course, written by Jim Johnston. The commentary team, that's going to evolve too. We'll start with Vince McMahon, Randy Savage, and Rob Bartlett. Maybe Rob wasn't one of the highlights of the first Monday Night Raw. When you think about, you know, this new show, I'm sure there were things that Vince really wanted, but sometimes we hear there's some things that Vince definitely doesn't want. Was there one thing that he wanted to avoid that he felt like was, you know, tired or worn out from the primetime era? And damn it, no more blank. Did something like that exist?
No. I mean, this was looking at this and trying to create a new live high energy show, something that wasn't on the air at the time. We had syndication that was high energy and that was good, but it wasn't live. And the idea to present this live without a net show, you know, uncooked, uncensored, whatever the fuck, unbelievable, you know, it's Monday Night Raw. That was the idea. Whatever happened happened. We wanted it to feel like, you know, anything can happen anytime. Mistakes are going to happen. Shit is going to happen. That's what we were looking for. We were looking for a down and dirty Raw show. As a matter of fact, when, you know, I always tell the story about Monday Night Raw, the name came from the descriptor. because every time that we would describe this show to anybody, it would be, no, man, it's going to be a stripped down version of Superstars. It's going to be down and dirty and raw and gritty. And, it's just, think of this thing. It's just a raw TV show, man. No bells and whistles, no nothing. And raw was in every descriptor.
Right.
To where finally we just, in thinking about a name, well, it's Raw. Okay, what's the name? It's a Raw show. I mean, wait a minute, that could be the name. It's Raw. So that's how Raw got its name, and it stuck. And I think it fit all these years as well.
This is very much the new generation era, and in a weird way, I kind of think Raw was the launching point for this new generation era. It's a 60-minute show, the very first episode. We've got 4 matches. There is a dark match that would see Crush beat Bam Bam Bigelow by DQ. But the matches we see nationally are Yokozuna beating Koko Beware in 3 minutes and 45 seconds. The Steiner brothers beating the Executioners in 3 minutes. The Intercontinental Champion Shawn Michaels defeating Max Moon. And The Undertaker defeating Damien Demento in 2 minutes and 26 seconds. This feels like a new era for the WWF. Hulk Hogan's not your centerpiece here on this show. You're showcasing a lot of younger talent. That's all by design, right?
Of course it was. I don't even think Hulk was back with the company yet at this point. He was coming back.
Right.
But I don't think he was even back with the company at this point. And it was an opportunity. Yes, it was an opportunity to showcase talent, put them in competitive matches, and see them in a new light.
Yeah, it definitely feels like you guys are trying to try something different. Bruce, let's get back to the show. I guess the second biggest moment in Monday Night Raw history, going chronologically, Ric Flair versus Mr. Perfect. A loser leaves town match happens very early on in Monday Night Raw history. January 25th, 1993. We talked about maybe this show being representative of the new era. Well, out with the old, in with the new. Ric Flair's out of here. This is a big deal to have a wrestling icon finish up live on your television show, no?
Yeah, it was. It was a big deal that day. That was something that was actually done day of.
Really?
In that Rick was not doing much in the company at the time, and I think Rick felt that he would be a lot happier if he were back at WCW. And Vince, Rick was having the vertigo problems and different issues. And Vince told him, he says, Rick, I told you that if you were ever unhappy here, you could leave. And Rick made a phone call. And the rest, as they say, is history. Walked in and said, let's do a loser leave town match. And we did it, right then and there, and had, put Mr. Perfect over, and Rick left and went to WCW. It was absolutely no hard feelings. It was no, wow, this is a bummer. It was, okay, let's do this and make the most out of it.
We often talk about how in life and in business, timing is everything. Do you think Rick would have had a different type of run had he jumped to the WWF for SummerSlam 88 rather than coming in a few years later?
I do. But again, that's hindsight being 2020, and that's, who really knows? I mean, who really knows? I think that, as I've said before, I think that there were points where Rick was brought in at a point where a lot of the audience didn't necessarily know him from the WWF side. And by the time that we got to bringing Rick in the 2000s, to me, that was Rick's best run. It was excellent. So, it really just kind of depends on your taste. And one of the things that we missed in the first show, because I just watched the first show, the entire thing on the plane ride home from Detroit the other night. And there was, so as you talked about, the skit of Bobby Heenan trying to get into the building all night, and he's dressing up as a old woman trying to get in to see her son and all these different things. And then in the middle of the show, let's go to previously recorded comments from Bobby Heenan. And there's Bobby Heenan by himself talking about the debut of the greatest wrestler that anyone has ever seen that will be debuting, Narcissus. And when Narcissus gets here, you will understand that Narcissus is, and it was, again, in context, knowing that we were going to change, that he would be the narcissist Lex Luger. But at first, he was just going to be Narcissus, managed by Bobby Heenan. So, yeah, that part kind of fell and rang. It just didn't fit in the show, in the lineup of the show, and it was horrible. Oh my God, it was hard. I can't ever tell you a time where I would say Bobby Heenan's work was horrible, but that promo was horrible because it was just comical. And I think the more that Bobby felt it was going downhill, the more he threw in the name Narcissus and shit like that.
Well, Bobby Heenan was always on his A game for these Flair segments. And, Raw definitely sends a message to viewers. Hey, this is an important show. Ric Flair just lost a loser leaves town match. He's out of the WWF now. Another major moment that made Raw sort of can't miss. If you were on the fence, is this a new era? Is this a different show? It felt bigger than primetime when 1-2-3 Kid would beat Razor Ramon. The upset of the century, May 17th, 1993. Of course, we had seen Sean Waltman as the Kamikaze Kid and the Cannonball Kid, and he had been enhancement talent just as the Kid, and then it happens. And of course, when he beats Razor Ramon, he becomes the 1-2-3 Kid. We made a guy here, and this is probably one of the first big moments in Raw history. No,
absolutely, and a complete mistake. I mean, this wasn't something that, hey, let's make the Kid do this thing. This was Sean Waltman coming in, and I had worked with Sean in Dallas for Global Wrestling. It was Lightning Kid and Scotty Flamingo, who were both down there. Brought him in, and here you've got the Kid. He's skinny and doesn't look like much, according to Vince. It's like, what the hell do you do with that? So, yeah, but his work is different. If he gets in, I think that let him work, and the audience is going to be behind him. So we're sitting at ringside, and Kid comes out, and Kid gets in the ring, and the audience knows him. Not the whole audience, but there are enough loud members of the audience. They're like, Lightning Kid, hey, all right. And whatever the hell we call them, the Kamikaze Kid, the Blue Kid, the Green Kid, whatever. Every week we were going to change his name until the audience kind of let the audience, which one do they like best? Where are we going to end up? We might have ended up on Lightning Kid. Who knew? But then this little program was just, what if with Razor Ramon, man? What if the Kid beat Razor? It could be a good deal. We did the $1,000 or $10,000 bag of money and all that good shit. And on that finish on the 1-2-3, and I think Kid was knocked out in that match. He doesn't even remember it. But on that 1-2-3, the audience started chanting to Razor, 1-2-3, 1-2-3. And in that moment, Vince named him. I was like, oh my God, can you believe that? Razor Ramon! Oh my God! Look at 1-2-3, Razor. That's right, 1-2-3. The 1-2-3 can't just beat you, pal. It wrote itself. That was like one of those nice aha moments. That wasn't planned. We didn't know the audience was going to chant 1-2-3, but they did, and they made the Kid, and he became the 1-2-3 Kid. I think that was the highlight of the Kid's entire career. Really, that was the moment. If you, not everybody can you go back to that moment
when they were made.
Yeah. And for Kid, that's it.
Well, another major moment that put another superstar on the map, at least here in the WWF, is when Vader would attack Gorilla Monsoon, January 22nd, 1996. Of course, he debuts at the 1996 Royal Rumble as a monster heel, and the next night on Raw, he dominates Savio Vega, but he continues to punish Vega after the match. And of course, that brings out the President Gorilla Monsoon, who confronts Vader and suspends him, and then bam, finds himself being attacked by the Mastodon. This is a big moment because nobody had touched Gorilla like this, right?
Nobody puts Gorilla in a corner, by God.
There you go.
Nobody touches Gorilla Monsoon. No. And, nobody touches him. And also, Gorilla was a little fragile by this point in his life. Still a big, rugged individual. I wouldn't want to mess with Monsoon even then. I wouldn't have wanted to mess with Monsoon when he was in the hospital in his last few days, because I still think Gino could have grabbed you and done whatever he wanted to do to you. But Gorilla's health wasn't that great, and so let's get this angle. No one had ever touched Monsoon before. Let's give it to Vader. Big bastard, big guy, come in and do the unthinkable, and that is actually squash the then on air president of Gorilla Monsoon. So there was sympathy. People loved Gorilla. He was a beloved figure. So for someone to actually do that, it's one thing to have words with him, but for Vader to actually attack and hurt and put Monsoon out, that was a huge deal.
Another huge deal later in 1996, we would see Pillman's Got a Gun. This one happened November 4th, 1996. We covered it in our Brian Pillman episode. Highly recommend you check out our Brian Pillman episode in the archives if you haven't already. But, man, you want to talk about trying new things. I don't think I had ever seen a gun in wrestling before until right here.
Well, it was a little edgy.
Yeah, a little bit.
That's for sure. And we had told the authorities locally what we were going to do, because people around the area that knew where Brian lived and still believed and were into it were very capable of calling the police and saying, "Oh my God, there's someone trying to break into Brian Pillman's house at whatever his address is. You need to get there right away." And then, "Oh my God, he's got a gun." Wouldn't do that today. That's for sure. Wouldn't do that ever again, even after wouldn't have done that next week. Yeah. Poor judgment on our part. I think it was looking at the loose cannon of Brian Pillman and that character. What would he do? What would you do if you were defending your family and you yourself were just kind of gimped up and you had a bad leg and you can't really do too much to fend for yourself? You're going to need an equalizer. And that equalizer was, his Glock. So it was, something we talked about, edgy, definitely out there, and said, let's try it. Bad decision. Not good. Not a good decision. And we really had to walk that one back quite a bit. But the network wasn't happy with it. And I don't think, we weren't happy with it after all was said and done. It was, you could have done something else, and you live and learn.
Well, you do live and learn. And lots of people are going to be wishing they had lived and learned after Shawn Michaels loses his smile, February 13th, 1997. 1997 is going to be a big year for the company. And man, we start off with a pretty big moment. It's pretty rare when your champion comes on TV and forfeits the title. Sort of throws a monkey wrench in not only the pay-per-view that's coming up that weekend, but WrestleMania as well. This was a big moment then. One of the biggest moments in Raw history. What do you remember of this day?
Wow, Lowell, Mass. I just remember the room that we had the production meeting in, and we pretty much stayed in there all day trying to figure out, all right, now what? Now what do we do? And I don't know that there was an abundance of sympathy for Sean. I think that a lot of people doubted the validity of that injury. That, he walks out of the meeting room and then skips up a couple of steps up to the next level. So it was, look, man, it was a bad day in the neighborhood, to say the least. And so he gets in the ring to forfeit the title and starts talking about things and talks about losing his smile. Like, wait a minute, you've got a career-ending injury possibly that you have to take care of, that you have to forfeit the title. You're talking about losing your smile? Everybody's looking at each other going, what the hell is this? Yeah, didn't fit the narrative. And I think people saw through it and were unhappy about it for a variety of reasons. Those that were Shawn Michael fans were definitely unhappy that Shawn was stepping down. Those that weren't were, screaming, I told you so. Ain't nothing wrong with him. And that was it. But, that was one of those moments that, defined that anything else that he said in that promo, any and everything else that he said about the injury and the business and the championship, didn't mean a thing, because all anyone heard was, and my mom said I lost my smile.
Yeah.
I've lost my smile before.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Does it usually happen when you don't get a good night's sleep?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it certainly does, but not anymore, because I figured out a way to get a good night's sleep.
So, Bruce, let's talk about another major moment in Raw history. After Shawn lost his smile in February, just 1 month later, Bret is going to lose his cool and push down Mr. McMahon. He had just lost a salad steel cage match to Psycho Sid when The Undertaker is going to shut the cage door on Bret. That allows Sid to climb over the top to the floor, and feeling like he'd been screwed, and now despondent Bret Hart stays in the ring, pacing as a crew dismantling the cage around him. And then Vince McMahon gets up from the commentary desk, comes to interview Bret about his frustration. And Bret just lets it rip, man. Frustration isn't the goddamn word for it. Bret snaps and pushes Vince on the canvas, and we're seeing the seeds of a whole new Bret Hart here. Something Monday Night Raw listeners or viewers had never seen at that point. A bad guy, Bret. My goodness.
And I don't even think that Bret saw it as a bad guy. I think Bret figured that every audience member saw things through his eyes. Where Bret thought he was screwed, and where Bret thought that, he had been wronged, that every member of the audience was feeling that same thing through him. So they could understand that frustration, and he brought them with him on that ride of all of this major frustration to just do the unthinkable, put his hands on a commentator, the lead commentator, the play-by-play guy of Monday Night Raw, who's just in there trying to get a word. To those that knew the other side, that Vince McMahon was also the owner of the company, it was like a ooh moment. Either way, it was an ooh moment. But it was trying to take people on that ride, that this was it, man. This was enough. And that, Bret was unhappy, and Bret was ready to just take it out on anybody that was in front of him and show more attitude. And I think that that's what we were looking for. And that's something that Bret gave us, was the attitude in this particular situation.
It's fun to see that we're going to see a transition for Vince in 1997 too. Not only is Monday Night Raw changing and maybe the top of the card, but after being pushed down here, I mean, at this point, he's really just been acknowledged as being an announcer. But he gets shoved down here, and then, of course, we know later that year it really comes to a head with Bret and Vince, and the interviews after is what leads to the creation of Mr. McMahon, the character. It's funny to see that Bret was a part of those bookends, if you will.
Yeah, I think that, by Bret, Bret wanted to do something with Vince from the standpoint of the play-by-play guy. And again, also from the standpoint of, to those who knew, they knew that he was also the owner of the company. The majority of the audience watching thought of Vince as a play-by-play guy.
Right.
So we didn't do that, man. We didn't touch our play-by-play guys, especially the main one. So I think that was kind of innovative. And it was good thinking on Brett's part, because it was Brett's idea to do that. And it was Brett's idea to, let me do some of these things that are taboo that we just don't do. And I thought Brett did them well, and it came off as real, came off in the moment, that passion and frustration in the moment. Brett could always give that to you.
Well, I'll tell you what else is a big moment. The formation of DX. I don't think any of us knew at the time. Boy, the Attitude Era is about to be here in a big way. August 11th, 1997. The Attitude Era, to me, will always be synonymous with DX and some of their juvenile behavior, the crotch chopping and all that. And man, this is something that I don't think anybody saw as a possible direction for the company. I mean, we're just a few years removed from occupational gimmicks and diaper matches, and now let's get ready to suck it. Things, they are changing, huh?
Yeah, they were. I think the world was changing big time. I think the world around us was a lot edgier than it had been, and people were expressing themselves in ways that no one ever really had seen before. So now you have a trio of talent that is expressing themselves in very juvenile like way. I mean, they are, doing every teenage way that they can just to get a reaction. It's like my brother used to sit at the kitchen table when it was just me left, and my mom would usually still be sitting there, but my dad would be in the other room. And when my mom would look away, my brother would either open his mouth with a mouthful of mashed potatoes and beans and go, ah, or he would like start spitting things out and sticking green beans up his nose and things like that. And I'm a kid. I'm laughing my ass off. And my mother would turn around, would you knock that off? And he's sitting, when she turns around, he's sitting there. She called me and goes, what are you doing, Bruce? And it was juvenile, but it was funny. That's what DX was. They were juvenile. It was funny. And it represented, I think, the rebellion in the world against leaders and against the norm and against what establishment had said right and wrong was. They were there to redefine what right and wrong was, or at least in their mind. And, the funny thing is Brett actually named Degeneration X and doesn't even know it.
Wow.
Because Brett referred to them one night as
Degenerates.
And Vince looked at it. He goes, yeah. He goes, you got your Gen Xers, you got this, you got that. He goes, what if they're degenerates and they're Degeneration X? I thought that was a horrible name. Like, oh God, that's not going to work. That's just, it's a mouthful. Degeneration X. And it sounded too plain almost. Yeah, I think it worked out all right for him.
Triple H has said that Vince really didn't like DX in the beginning. Was that just him coming around to Vince and Sean, or Sean and Hunter having so much fun, or are you trying to help the way Vince sees it? Well, no, Vince, you got to look at it like this sort of thing. I could see you trying to sell it like that.
I think that, I don't, it's not that Vince didn't like it. I don't think he understood it.
Okay.
And I don't think that he was really anticipating the reaction that it got from the audience. Because the audience, they would laugh with them, they would cheer with them, they would boo when it was against, a baby face. But it was the funniest thing to me was, in my opinion, so much of it was the type of humor that Vince really likes, but he didn't think the audience would.
Right.
And the more the audience got it, I think that, he opened up to it to go, okay, well, shit, you know what? They like this crazy crap. But I don't think he ever didn't like it. I think he just didn't understand it in the beginning as
Here's
to
the
why are these people reacting the way they are. Oh my God, you should hate these guys. But they were entertaining.
Well, we were all entertained on September 22nd, 1997. Another major moment on Monday Night Raw. This is the first time we see Monday Night Raw from Madison Square Garden. And Stone Cold Steve Austin is going to get arrested because he's going to stun Mr. McMahon. This is a big deal. We shoved him down in March, and that really helped escalate Brett as a heel and get him started in that direction. But it's funny when somebody stuns Vince a few months later, they're cheered wildly. That shows you the transition here in the company from just March to September, does it not?
Yeah, man. Steve was red hot. Steve Austin was absolutely on fire. And Steve was on fire not even being able to work at the time because of his neck issues. But there were these vignettes that had been done and all this story behind who is Stone Cold Steve Austin. And now here's an opportunity to see this complete anti-authority figure in Steve Austin go to the man. And again, Vince had been touched by Bret Hart, hadn't really been touched by anybody else.
Right.
And Vince, as a commentator and as a friend, is trying to talk Stone Cold out of coming back into action in WWE and trying to explain to him why that's bad for his career, for himself. Steve, this is something you should not do. And the rattlesnake being the rattlesnake, I don't care who you are, I don't care what you represent, but double fingers, and here's a stunner for you. Again, it goes back to, oh my God, Steve, he was just trying to help you.
Right.
To the people that, oh my God, Steve, that's the owner of the company. That it was an incredible moment because Steve could have stunned an old grandmother on a walker or in a wheelchair, and the audience would have popped. That's how over Steve Austin was at the time.
Let's talk about the bump. Is this the first time Vince practiced a stunner or took a stunner? I mean, clearly he didn't practice, right? I mean,
I don't know if he practiced or not. It was one of those things where there's 9 million different people telling you how to take things and to do things. And it was what it was, whether it was nerves, whether it was just, Vince wasn't a worker.
Right.
Vince had never done anything like that before. Vince had never taken a bump. So he just tried to do it like he thought it should be done. And, again, everybody and their mother, is telling him how to take it. I think by the time that he got to the kick in the gut, he was probably so confused as far as how to take that bump that nobody knew what the hell was going to happen next.
Well, nobody knew what was going to happen when we got the sit-down interview. Brett screwed Brett.
Ah, bastard.
17th, 1997. Just 8 nights after Vince McMahon took the belt off of Brett at Survivor Series, we do this sit-down interview with Jim Ross to sort of justify the call. And he says something like, there's a time-honored tradition in the wrestling business that when someone is leaving, they show the right amount of respect to the WWF superstars in this case that helped make you that superstar. You show the proper respect to the organization that helped you become who you are today. And by not doing so, Vince is going to argue that means Brett screwed Brett. We've talked about the Montreal screw job.
Have we ever really talked about that, Conrad?
A million different times.
I don't ever remember me ever talking about the Montreal screw job. This is the first for me.
that sit down with Vince, it's the first time something like that has ever happened, not just in the WWF, not just in Raw, but in wrestling, right?
Probably so.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably so. But it was something that we felt needed to be addressed. Whether that was the forum or not at the time, as far as how we were thinking, I don't know. But as I say, a lot of times, man, it all worked out.
Oh yeah, it all worked out. It's just it's something I couldn't even imagine it happening in another era of the company or another organization. I mean, I do remember seeing Fritz von Erich sort of trash some of the pretend Von Erichs on world class TV. I don't really remember anything like that where the guy is sort of pulling back the curtain and sort of breaking kayfabe on the
Wait,
TV.
now I'm interested. When did Fritz trash pretend Von Erichs?
He used to do a segment where he would like answer fan mail, and so there was a question about Lance Von Erich, and he just really leaned into it.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Something you and I lean into.
Didn't squirt out of my nuts, so he's not a real Von Erich. By God.
Well, Bruce, let's talk about 1998. Boy, we start the year off with a big bang. January 19th, 1988. I'm going to call this major moment number 11 in Raw history, at least during your tenure. Mike Tyson shoving Stone Cold Steve Austin. You guys are going to get mainstream attention everywhere. Did you know, like that night in the building, just based on his reputation and all that, this is going to be one of the biggest moments in Raw history? Like you just know it when that one's happening, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where this was the first time I remember Vince coming back and grabbing me, and we went in his office and said, "All right, we got to plot this out. We have lightning in a bottle. We got to plot this out all the way to WrestleMania," because I think at the time we had maybe 3 dates total.
Okay.
On Tyson, and he was on cloud 9, loved it, and we were looking at, okay, we've got to get as much as we can out of this and have some fun with it. So went in, laid it out, talked to Mike and his people, and all's good in the world.
Was this a role that was really created for Mike Tyson, or did you just know, hey, we want to give some sort of celebrity rub to Austin? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, if for whatever reason it didn't work out with Tyson, would you have tried this with some other big celebrity name?
I don't think so. I mean, this was tailor-made for Mike Tyson.
Right.
And I don't know who else could have pulled it off. Thinking about it now because of how well it worked, I don't know that anybody else would have cared. A Dennis Rodman, somebody like that, maybe.
Right.
Because they were red hot at the time. But Tyson was different, man. Tyson was still Mike Tyson.
He was the pay-per-view juggernaut. I mean, just 6 months prior, he's biting Evander Holyfield's ear. I mean, he's the bad boy of pay-per-view.
Yes. And he was must-see TV.
Well, it was must-see TV. I brought it in at number 11 here. Number 12, I went with Triple H taking over DX. It happened one night after WrestleMania 14. Shawn Michaels, of course, lost his title to Stone Cold Steve Austin. So this is going to be a new era of DX. Shawn's out of here. And on this very same show, Sean Waltman is back. So I guess this is here we are on big moment number 12 in Raw history. And Sean Waltman's on the list a second time. The first time beating Razor Ramon, but now the big debut here. This was a big moment. And I think you could argue that this is the episode of Raw where the Monday after WrestleMania sort of became a thing, right?
Well, you're talking about big moments and debuts. Check her out. She's such a good puppy dog.
Now, is this the dog you were telling me off air you weren't sure you were going to keep?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's such a good girl, though. She loves her.
So listen, I know the real story here. This is an adopted pet from across the country, is it not?
Yes. She's from Cypress Animal Rescue, and she's a rescue, and she's a good girl. So, like, if anybody has any suggestions for names, let us know. Because right now her name is Fernum. We don't know if
Oh,
that's
I
going to
love
stick,
that.
but she is the bestest girl, and she's the new official dog of Something to Wrestle with.
No, she's not.
Yes, she is.
No, she's
Dodger
not.
left us. She's a good girl. Yes, tell him you want to be the official puppy dog. Say, I'm the official puppy dog. I'm the official puppy. Watch this. You know how to dominate them? You hold their paws like this, and
Yeah.
then that tells them that you're the dominant one. I am dominating you. I am dominating you. I am dominating you.
If
Yeah, she don't give a
somebody
shit.
does that in the Rumble, I am dominating you. I am dominating.
Yes, I know. Oh my
So
goodness.
hashtag welcome Schnavitz.
No.
Is this the first time we saw a dog shit live on Something to Wrestle?
No, this is the forbidden zone for her. We refer to this as the forbidden zone for her. She knows she's not allowed in this office or that office.
How many offices you got up there?
I have the formal office and I have the studio office.
The formal office. My goodness. That's that WWE money. If you want to see Bruce's new dog, check it out. Somethingtowrestle.com over on YouTube. That's the best way to watch our show. Big moment number 12. Triple H taking over DX. The Monday after WrestleMania. Here comes Sean Waltman. What do you remember about that night?
Wow. So much. Just Vince, really, I don't know that he was completely sold on Triple H being the leader, but that's where we were. And Vince would go through this, and tell him what to do and tell him how to do it. I don't think that Triple H had his own ideas, in mind as far as how he wanted to be the leader and pulled it off. I think that it was in that moment with the loss of Shawn, here was an opportunity for Hunter, China, Road Dogg, Billy, and X-Pac to all step up.
Yes.
You want to be top guys? Show me you can be top guys. And in my opinion, every single one of them stepped up in that moment to say, yeah, no, it's going to be me. When we went to, Atlanta and did the whole invasion, that is DX. That showed me these guys were in it to win it. These guys fucking had coconut balls and they weren't afraid of anything. So that was a really cool moment for me, just because in that moment, and it was outside, man, pacing outside and doing the General Patton shit. That was, it was hilarious because again, Vince was doing it one way and Hunter was doing it another way. And Hunter was being a smart ass as was Road Dogg and everybody else. And that's what worked.
Right.
So it was fun.
Fun is the right word to describe Monday Night Raw in 1998. And boy, was it fun on April 13th, 1998, when Mr. McMahon would take on Stone Cold. This is the episode where finally Raw overtakes Nitro in the ratings. Austin is going to challenge Vince to a match, and he's going to jokingly say, I could do it with one arm tied behind my back. The quote-unquote Stooges really play a major role in this episode, talking about Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe. And then, of course, we get Dude Love interference to try to build this tension. But, man, this was a big deal. And I don't think anybody would have predicted this would have ever been the creative just a year prior. I mean, it's been a year and change since we saw Brett push down Vince. But this is the evolution of that just over a year later. He's, quote unquote, in the main event against Stone Cold Steve Austin, the WWF World Champion. Raw is a different show here. The Attitude Era is upon us.
Yeah, and I think that the thing is no one saw it, but it was organic and it happened. And the beauty of that show was the build. You Had the challenge, you had the acceptance, then you had the realization of this is actually going to happen.
Right.
And watching Jerry Briscoe now, if he comes around like this, you hook the arm and then you trip the leg. And showing Vince all these things, it was um absolutely hilarious. That was some of the most fun producing those that I've ever had, because it was just everybody was letting loose. Everybody was like going, "Hey man, the shit that cracks us up backstage is going to crack up the audience just as much. So let's
Right.
just do it. Let's just go out and have fun and do it. We're having fun with us. Let the audience have fun with us." So to me, that was the secret, and that was kind of where things loosened up quite a bit.
Well, things are really loose. 2 weeks later, what a big 1998 this is. Just 2 weeks after, we see Mr. McMahon versus Stone Cold. April 27th, 1998. DX is going to do their invasion. Of course, it's Triple H, Road Dogg, Billy Gunn, X-Pac, and China, dressed in their fatigues and helmets and, well, some people say a tank, others say a Jeep. Either way, man, you're breaking some taboos here on the show. Talk about a wrestling first, no?
Well, no, it wasn't a wrestling first. It was the question was posed in a production meeting back in the day, in the territory days. If another promoter came in and promoted either really close to you or had a show in your market, what would you do? And I said, well, we'd send a couple of our toughest guys over to their show and knock on the door and say hello and beat somebody's ass. Whether you won or lost, you made noise and people would be talking about you. So we were within a 40-minute proximity, and people had viewed us as the underdog. So let's go be the underdog. Let's go knock on the big dog's door and say, hello. Hey, is this Nitro? This for little girls play? And that's what we did. Didn't know what to expect. Really did not know what to expect. But it was, we had a plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D. And I had the attorney's phone number in my pocket. So whatever happened, I was prepared for it.
Right.
If the cops came and confiscated our tapes, guaranteed they would have got a blank tape, because tape with anything recorded on it would have already been halfway to where it needed to go. So, I mean, we had contingencies for everything. And that's the beauty of doing something like that, is you just don't know.
Right.
You don't know what's going to happen. So you go into it, and there's that excitement, man. There's that the excitement of the unknown and the hoping. Oh man, I hope somebody comes, or I hope they do something that makes them look like they're scared. Anything, and they did. They closed the door on us. They wouldn't come talk to us, and then called the cops on us. So all good stuff, and that was another one of those pivotal moments, because it was, we acknowledged the other brand, and we acknowledged that they were scared. So
I don't know why, but we acknowledged they were scared.
yes,
Makes me smile. Next up, we'll call it number 15 on our 30 biggest moments of Bruce's history with Raw. Stone Cold driving a Zamboni to the ring.
holy shit!
September 28th, 1998. This is after a controversial triple threat match finish at the Breakdown pay-per-view between Stone Cold, Kane, and The Undertaker. McMahon is going to hold the title up, and he's going to promise to either award the title to either Kane or The Undertaker on Raw. And then here comes Stone Cold to interrupt this ceremony, driving a Zamboni. We know that we're going to see lots of fun Stone Cold vehicle skits and stunts, and this is the first one of many to come. who knew this was going to become a staple of the Stone Cold program, huh?
Yeah, well, who knew that in rehearsal they were going to put curtains up so that the curtains could blind him and he wouldn't know where the hell he was going. Plus, he was wild as could be anyway. If you look real closely, you'll see before Steve goes out into the audience and goes through the last bit of curtains where there's a table and one person standing behind that table. That's me, almost getting killed by the Zamboni because Steve couldn't see where he was going and almost ran me into the wall, ran me over with the Zamboni. But instead, it just pinned me against the wall and all was okay. But it was insanity. That became the, hey, what can Steve drive to the ring and what can Steve drive that's going to be a holy shit moment? You run out of them pretty quick when you try to do it every week. But that was the beginning. That was the start.
So, Bruce, let's talk about, I guess what we'll call big moment number 16. At least to me, this is still one of the most talked about segments in Raw history. When Stone Cold Steve Austin hit Vince McMahon in the head with a bedpan. This is the episode where we would see Mick Foley as Mankind try to cheer up Mr. McMahon, and he brings along his old pal Yerple the Clown. And of course, we get introduced to Mr. Socko. I mean, that night, I feel like everybody was talking about the bedpan. But boy, Mr. Socko, he's going to live forever. What a segment, Bruce.
Yeah, great segment. It was, the whole story was tremendous with, Mick Foley coming in to cheer up Mr. McMahon and how do you cheer people up? Who doesn't love clowns?
Right.
Here's Yerple. And then from there, who doesn't love sock puppets? And Mick Foley. I think the sock puppet idea was maybe Al Snow's or something like that. But Mr. Socko was born. And who, the crazier thing is, who would have thought that from that scene of a Mick trying to cheer up Vince with the sock puppet, that sock puppet would still live today.
Crazy.
Become a high spot in Mick's match. And, to this day, Mick will go to do an appearance and just stop at Walmart and get 2 bushels of tube socks and sit there with his magic marker and draw on Mr. Socko and then sell them for $800 a piece and sign them for another $300. But
hey, hang on. Did you just infer that in Connecticut you could buy what's known as a bushel of socks?
Yeah, you can buy them, especially there in Alabama too.
Bushels of socks.
Oh yeah.
How many socks would be in a bushel, Bruce?
About a third of a hairpin.
Okay. Or 3/4 of a Fernum Schnavens.
No.
Not that many?
No, not that many.
I'm not good at fractions.
Yeah, not that many.
Talk to me about Yerple. Where does one find a Yerple?
Man, look for a clown and wherever the hell we were, and Yerple was a clown they sent. No thought to it. No, it was just clowns are us. And Yerple came out. Yeah. And then from there, when it came time to needing a clown, well, we got to have the same clown. So we had to go back to the same clowns are us to find Yerples are us and get Yerple back. She was terrible. She was a terrible clown. I will go on record as saying she's terrible.
Now, Bruce, that's not very polite.
What?
Mick really likes Yerple. Why do you think Yerple's terrible? That's a mean thing to say.
She was a terrible clown. She just wasn't a good clown. She just was.
What makes a good clown?
A good clown is funny. A good clown does pratfalls. A good clown is always working to pop whoever is in front of them. She was just she had her bit, and that was it.
Who's the best clown you ever worked with?
Chuck Sidlow.
Only you would have a fucking answer to that. Tell me about Chuck Sidlow.
Chuck Sidlow was boss clown of Ringling Brothers. When I first met him, he was boss clown of the red unit, and then later on he changed over to the blue unit. It was kind of like Raw and SmackDown with Ringling Brothers. They had boss clowns. And then the second best clown, I would have to say, would be Lou Jacobs. think it was
Hey, you know what? I'm going to tell you, I thought you were making this shit up.
No.
But Chuck Sidlow is actually in the Circus Ring of Fame. He was inducted
Goddamn right he is.
Fame in 2018.
Yeah.
I can't believe this is a real. How do you know so much about clowns?
You don't. Everybody knows about clowns.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do. But see, here's the thing, man. Chuck was always working. Chuck was always working. Great clown, man. Never stopped. Yerpel was just had her bit. Chuck would adapt to whatever was around him. Clown. Clowns do, man. You got to know how to be a clown. If you're going to be a clown, man. Live it. Don't just do a bit. Anybody can do a bit. Then you're just a cheap actress or whatever the hell you are. It's not right. It's just not right, man. If you're gonna be a clown, commit. Clowns are an important part of our society. Chuck Sidlow, damn right.
Yeah, go check this out over at somethingtowrestle.com. I can't believe this is a real thing. We're having a whole.
You can't believe that a clown is a real thing?
I can't believe we're having a clown conversation here on something.
Well, you brought it up.
Well, I just didn't expect you to be so knowledgeable about clowns.
Well, I'm a knowledgeable son of a gun, man. Yeah. Okay. Again, now knowing that my history, can you understand my passion for Doink the Clown in later years to come?
Yeah.
See? Chuck and I go way back, man. Chuck and I go way back to Houston, man, when I was like 21, 22. Chuck, I had not seen Chuck in years. This is great. So I had not seen Chuck in years. And last time I had seen Chuck, he was the boss clown of the red unit or whatever. And I was going to a circus with the blue unit. I knew it was the blue unit in town. And I'm there and I'm sitting with a female friend of mine, and a clown comes up and starts like really messing with me. And I'm messing with him back and all this stuff. And then he starts messing with her about me and says my name like 2 or 3 times. And I look at him, and it was Chuck in a different clown gimmick, but he was great. But he picked me out. The crazy thing was he picked me out of the crowd. Like, didn't know I was there, didn't know, nothing, but just picked me out of the crowd and came out and did it. That's clown work, man. That's a worker. Not breaking gimmick.
Right.
Staying gimmick. Yerpel did 1 bit. That's it. She was a prima donna too.
I never thought we were going to bury Yerpel here on the program.
Well, she wasn't a good clown. I'm sure she's a very nice lady. I'm sure Clowns R Us does, very quality clown.
Ing.
But they're not professionals, man.
Amateur hour over there.
Amateur hour over there, man. Come on.
Talk to me about the bedpan. Is this something where you guys just get there and Austin is trying to figure out what's going to make a good noise and what's handy?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just Austin walking around seeing what he can use.
Right.
There's a bedpan there. Banging on his head. Not that bad. We can do this. Why not? And even if it was bad, it looked good.
Well, let's talk about.
Have you ever gone poo-poo in a bedpan?
No, I've never gone poo-poo in a bedpan. Tell me about your bedpan experience. All the times you went. Poo-poo.
Okay, so they tried to make me go poo-poo in a bedpan. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I had to do it for my dad. Put the thing under there. Well, my dad did it. My dad was able to do it. I couldn't do it. How many people have actually poo-pooed in a bedpan that you know?
Dave Silva.
Oh God, he does it just on principle every day. I mean, I don't think that he knows how to poo-poo anywhere else.
He told me it saves steps. I don't know what that means, but that's what he told me.
Yeah, well, he's saved enough.
Number 17 on Bruce's 30 biggest moments of Raw during his tenure. Mrs. Foley's baby boy wins the championship January 4th, 1999. Of course, famously, Tony Schiavone helped you guys out that night. The old "that's going to put butts in seats" comment 600,000 people changed the channel from a live Raw with the finger poke of doom to watch a taped
from
show.
a live Nitro.
Yeah, you know what I mean. From a live Nitro to a taped Raw. Man, that's talk about the ultimate favor here. And what a big moment. This is a guy who for years Vince was hesitant to even give a job to. And now he's the top dog. He's the champ.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest pop in Raw history, too, was Stone Cold, I still think.
My God. Incredible when Steve comes out. The entire place stands up. It's just you're surrounded. It was incredible. And much deserved on Mick's part, I think. I think that the audience the audience wanted it, and by God, they got it. I thought that was a really cool moment, cool night, and good stuff.
Man, what a favor Shivani did in hindsight for you guys too, huh?
Yeah, thank you, Tony. You ignorant son.
Yeah, it was your boy Eric. Next up,
Tony said it. He didn't have to say it. I tell Michael Cole say shit all the time. He doesn't say shit. That's on Tony. That's on Tony, man. That's on Tony. Tony fucking had the microphone. Tony could have shook it off. Said, no, man, not it. And said he did. And I guarantee you, Eric didn't say that'll put butts in seats. I guarantee you that was a Tony Schiavone line.
It is a Tony Schiavone line.
Yeah. So, that smart ass comment in and of itself deserves, hey, thank you, man. Moron.
1 week later, January 11th, 1999.
I like Tony. I like Tony. I'm gonna say that shit. And then I'm gonna have to get text messages. What do you mean?
No.
There's no heat with me and Tony.
Oh,
no, nothing. I love Tony. Got a lot of respect for Tony. Just because he's stupid with his comments sometimes. He's not a very good commentator or interviewer. I love Tony. I do.
By the way, he would really appreciate what you just did.
Of course.
When you compliment him and then shit on him, it's his favorite. It's mine and his love language. It's our love language.
Okay.
McMahon training for the Rumble happens January 11th, 1999. This is one of my favorite Raw moments in history. It made your list as well. He's doing these Rocky Balboa type training montages. I think these really establish Shane McMahon in a bigger way to the audience. I don't know, man. The story arc of this is tremendous. So much fun. What can you tell us about these?
Oh, man, I believe this was Shane's idea. And let's do the Rocky deal and show Vince training, and even to the point of catching the chicken. Which is catch chicken. What the hell do you want? But complete spoof on the Rocky training scenes, and let's get out there and do it, because that's how Mr. McMahon would train. He would be unorthodox.
Well, let's talk about another piece of unorthodox business. It's March 22nd, 1999. We talked about the Zamboni. Well, Austin's going to come into the building and pass a Coors Light truck. Fast forward. He nearly takes down the damn Titantron on the way in, and here comes the beer truck. It's time for a beer bath. We never really talked about this, but was there any concern about what you could or couldn't show on television with all this beer? Like from a sponsor standpoint or a USA standpoint, or because at this point you are selling lunch boxes and action figures. And I'm just wondering, was there any pushback about a beer bath like this?
No, not at all. I mean, if anything, Coors was ecstatic with it. Thought it was great because they got free advertising. That wouldn't happen in today's world. And Steve drank every week, so people were used to Steve having a beer. I thought it was absolutely just classic. It was another way for Stone Cold to be Stone Cold, and something that people had never seen before. Up until that point, had you ever seen someone like, did you know the beer trucks were full of beer like that? See, that's another thing people just don't realize. They got them big beer trucks, and they hook up a keg to the back of it and all that. So we just hooked up a beer hose.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with beer hose.
Well, see,
I gotta learn. I'll get
yeah,
there.
you'll get there. Especially, I mean, dude, you could have an entire beer truck in just one corner of
Will you
your
stop?
entire estate.
Will you stop?
When where you have the beer gardens out there on the south lawn, kind
Yeah, the
of the
south,
southwest
south
lawn,
ground. Yeah, yeah.
everything, you could put a beer truck right there.
I think the WWE put a DVD out a few years ago, ranking the 100 biggest moments in Raw's history, and I think this was their number one. I wouldn't go so far as to say it was number one for me, but where does the beer bath as a moment, as a television moment, rank for you?
Oh, definitely top five.
Yeah, I had a feeling you'd say top five. Big moment number 20 in Raw history: Chris Jericho's debut, August 9th, 1999. We've seen these clocks ticking down for quite a while now, and finally it reveals Y2J on the Geritron. Of course, The Rock is in the ring, and we've talked about this big debut in our archives, but this is a big moment in Raw history. You talk about a big debut during the Monday Night Wars. This is going to be near the top of the list, is it not?
Yeah, I think so. It was one of those moments that we were able to tease for a long time and deliver. So people were anticipating, wondering, what it was going to be, who it was going to be. And in my opinion, I think that Jericho definitely delivered and was able to come out and be placed in a top slot. And he was able to hang there and perform in that top slot. People accepted him.
Next up, This Is Your Life, September
Well,
27th, 1999. What a segment. I'm going to call it big moment number 21, going chronologically. And what a long segment it was, but a tremendous segment where Mick Foley is going to give The Rock a trip down memory lane. This segment here, man, who would have thought this would have done the business it did, the ratings it did? Momentum is a real thing, and this might be proof of that.
yeah, it is. I still think that they could do it in probably about half the time.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, look, man, it affects everybody else
Yes.
when you go over.
Yes.
So for them to go over as much as they did, it affects the rest of the show. It affects them later on in the show because you've got to rewrite, you've got to change things, and you have certain segments that you want to take place at a certain time of day in the show. So you want crossovers, you want something happening at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and now you've got to rearrange your show because of that. And I think that the folks that did that really didn't care about anything else other than their own segment.
Well, this segment as a fan was amazing. I could see how it's giving you guys heartburn after you've put together this show and got everybody ready to roll, and it just keeps going and going and going. But from a comedic standpoint, where would you rank this in Raw history?
Top 6.
Yeah. Maybe not quite top 5, but definitely top 6.
Top 6, yeah. It's in there.
Another big moment in Raw history, we'll call it number 22 here, happens November 29th, 1999. Well, who doesn't remember the Vegas wedding? Stephanie McMahon, of course, was set to marry Test on Raw, and well, Triple H interrupts and shows, well, that's going to be tough because we got married in a drive-thru in Las Vegas. Maybe in hindsight, this was not the best piece of creative, but it sure was a fun swerve and a nice new wrinkle in this story.
Yes, you shouldn't do that and wouldn't do that today. However, the Little Whitechapel's where I got married, so I thought that was an appropriate and nice enough place for Triple H and Stephanie to get married as well. And they do have a drive-through for convenience. So you don't have to get out of the car and deal with all that messy rice in your hair and everything. But again, it was, look, not for today, but for the time, it was quite funny with Triple H showing his ventriloquistic skills.
Wow.
I just made up a word, man.
You did. You know what, though? You said it with enough confidence where it might actually be a word.
Whiskey.
No, not anymore. You lost it. You had it there.
No, ventriloquistic.
Okay.
Okay. Hey,
Maybe it's worth a Google.
Don't.
Okay.
If you could spell it.
Big moment number 23. It's the beginning of a new era. The Raw Nitro simulcast, March 26, 2001. You know, this is something I don't think most wrestling fans who grew up in this era will ever forget. Just the idea of seeing Vince McMahon on Nitro was unfathomable, but it happened here. And this is another one of those moments where you know when it's happening, this is history. You know, some of these big moments, you probably, you know, you write them, you script them, you practice them, you talk about them, you walk through them, whatever. And you think, gosh, I hope this is good, or I think this is going to be good. But then there's other times where a segment like this happens and you know, this is wrestling history forever and ever.
Yes. That's a moment I will never forget. The moment that we pulled into the parking lot at the hotel where WCW was having Nitro that evening was memorable because we didn't know what to expect. It was myself, Jerry Briscoe, and Shane McMahon. And it was just, again, walking into the unknown is exciting. And you get to the point where it's funny, people that had never experienced the business and have never been in it from a professional standpoint, and I'll throw this to office workers, family members, people that write dirt sheets, things like that, that, you know, think, oh my God, this is going to be so bad. This could be so bad. There's going to be bad blood there. There could be physicality, fights, and all this. And I remember they sent security with us, and it was like, what do you guys think is going to happen? There's an entire group of men and women who are being told today that, hey, the company that you work for is no longer, and several of its assets were sold. And tonight, you know, one of those assets is this show. Not knowing what their future is, not having any clue, you know, if they're going to get a check next week. Last thing they're thinking about is, oh, I'm going to beat somebody up from the other team if they come over here.
Yeah.
To me, it's just so juvenile and asinine. It just shows no real world experience.
Right.
So when we walked in, we weren't expecting, you know, we were expecting pretty much what we got was people being very friendly and wondering about their future. And unfortunately, we didn't have a whole lot of answers about that, but treated everyone with respect, and everyone treated us with respect and wanted to go out and have the best show that they could have. So there was so much built into that of, oh, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. That goes from people who've never been there and don't have a frigging clue what real life is about. So, you know, pulling in, it's we didn't know anybody from the production side. We only had one person on our side from production that was going to be in the truck. We knew majority of the talent we knew and had worked with before, so that wasn't even an issue. But it was the atmosphere, you know, on a beach in a really crappy hotel, and yeah, it was just a lot of challenges, but we went into it with the thought that, man, we're making history tonight. This is history tonight. First time anything had been simulcast USA to TNT. That was history. WWE and WCW on each other's show on the same night live. That was history. It was just one of those very surreal, once in a lifetime moments that I'm privileged that I got to be a part of it.
Well said, Bruce. Let's talk about big moment number 24. It's unfortunately an injury circumstance. It's Benoit and Jericho against Austin and Triple H. Most people say it's the best tag match in Raw history. Other people would say it's the best match in Raw history. These four guys beat the shit out of each other, and then right in the middle, Hunter blows his quad, but keeps going. And of course, that's going to change your plans when the WWF is maybe hotter than ever here in May of 2001. Where do you rank this as an in-ring match all time? Not talking about the current era, but from back in the day, where does this match land?
It was definitely a great match. I think that you lose sight of all of that when we're sitting there watching and see Hunter get injured.
Yes.
We did not have knowledge of how serious it really was. Now, we're thinking we know, got a pretty good idea that he's hurt pretty bad. But when someone said he tore his quad, it's like, yeah, I'm sure it feels like that. But if he tore his quad, he couldn't walk.
Right.
And he's still doing stuff. So that made us think that, all right, he's hurting, but it's not
that bad.
Not going to be that bad. And then I think we got a shot of it somewhere on an ISO and saw how it had all rolled up already and going, how's he walking?
Right.
And he got up and did the walls of Jericho, did all these things that
he shouldn't have been able to do.
No. And then get up and do the finish. So it was insanity. And came back and sat down and didn't even have to go to an MRI. And the doctor's like going, yeah, you tore your quad, man. You're screwed. So that's a 6 to 8 month recovery right there. And all your plans you're thinking about with Steve and Hunter, like ruling for the next 6 months. Well, shit, we're not even going to have it. It sucked bad.
Of all the moments we've covered so far, is this the most gutsy performance so far?
Definitely. Because I don't know. I've never seen anyone ever do what Hunter did and be able to walk and put a little bit. And he did a rope spot where he hit the ropes.
Yeah.
And came off. And it's like, I couldn't imagine. Just could not imagine somebody else. I'm sure someone could. I'm sure, obviously, you can because he did. But most people would say,
no thanks.
Shouldn't walk.
Well, number 25 on my Bruce's 30 biggest moments of Raw. Kurt Angle's milk truck happens August 20th, 2001. 2 years after Stone Cold has bathed the corporation in beer. Now he's heading the alliance for WCW/ECW. And one of the main challengers for his world title is, of course, Kurt Angle. So Austin's in the ring with all the alliance members. And here comes Kurt Angle in a milk truck, sprays down the entire contingency. I love the parodying of the beer truck now with a milk truck. I know that maybe this quote unquote funny version and more fun version of Stone Cold didn't draw as much money, but it sure was fun TV, dude.
Oh my gosh. It was fun TV because I never knew what we were going to get out of Steve.
Yeah.
And we would go live. We would talk about it during the day and write a few things down and then get to the point and then say, you got all your stuff pre-taped? But yeah, no, we're going live. God damn it, Bruce. And but it was Steve.
Right.
Steve had that prerogative. So we would go live and it was meant to see what we could get away with. And we did. We got away with a lot. And I think it was some of the most entertaining things because it brought out personalities in people that a lot of folks didn't think had personalities. Rob Van Dam with the watch when Steve would do this shit and everything. And Rob reached over and grabbed Steve's wrist and was like, I don't hear anything, Steve. You need to get that. You need to get that fixed. Um, it was fun, and it was under the guise of fun, and everybody watching looked at it as these guys are having a good time, which we were.
Well, we were having some good times at my house when we had one of our first holy shit moments on Raw. We're going to call it moment number 26. Vince McMahon names the new GM of Raw, and it's Eric Bischoff. We thought we had seen it all when we saw a simulcast with Vince on Nitro. But to see Eric Bischoff walk on the set of Monday Night Raw, boy, nobody had this on their bingo cards just a few years prior to this, did they not?
I wouldn't guess it. Definitely wouldn't guess it. I think that Eric was probably the last person that anybody would think would be there. Eric had removed himself from the business quite a bit. He was in wherever the hell he's, Idaho or something like that. Wyoming? Where is he?
Eric, he's in Cody, Wyoming.
Cody, Wyoming. Yeah.
Did you think he was in Idaho, bud?
He might have been. He's been to Idaho. The moment I was thinking about it, I was thinking it was in Idaho. I know he lives in Wyoming. What are you trying to do? Catch me on something? You want to play gotcha?
July 15th.
He's been to Idaho.
Have
you ever been to Idaho?
I have not.
I have.
I've missed Idaho so far.
I have. I've been to Idaho. So people didn't think, Eric was off the radar. Eric wasn't somebody that people were talking about in the business anymore. And for Eric to show up, that was definitely a holy shit moment. That was oh my God, I can't believe that he's alive, much less here. And look at his hair.
It's glorious.
And then John Davidson, that's really giving my age away. But John Davidson was a game show host and like a C actor. And Eric looked just like him.
This is Baby. This is my wife's dog. She wants to say hello.
Poodle can't be.
What are you talking about?
No.
Yeah, this Baby's a winner. Now, she's not as cool as Ginger. This is my wife's dog, and she wanted to come say hello. I guess she heard about your pound puppy. She wanted to come mark her territory.
Yes, mine's a rescue.
Yeah, I got that.
From Cypress Rescue. So if anybody wants to do it, they do bring dogs all over the country.
I rescued my dog from my wife.
Yeah.
So let's talk about big moment number 27. You want to talk about an iconic moment. How about the first ever women's Raw main event?
Trish and Lita, right? Excellent.
Trish and Lita, December 6, 2004. It's the first women's match to ever headline an episode of Monday Night Raw. Man, you want to talk about a big part of the program. Just take a look at, how many segments the women are in these days on Raw and SmackDown. So it's a pretty major moment when you see two ladies in the main event spot. Once again, you're making wrestling history here, are you not, Bruce?
Yeah, we were. And, it's funny. People say, oh, why weren't there more women before? We just didn't have as many female athletes as they do now. And I think that for Trish and Lita, they deserved it. I mean, their story warranted that placement on the television show to close out the show and have people wait for it. It was a great story all throughout the show. And it was two of the greatest women talent ever to come through. So they were huge superstars. And I think to me, they were the two, big breakthrough superstars that put, the WWE women on a pedestal.
Well, I think this is a show you should go out of your way to watch. December 6th, 2004. This is, I don't know another way to say it. I mean, a groundbreaking moment in wrestling history. This is the A show. It's always been the A show. And for women to be in the main event is a big deal and a step in the right direction. And it happened 19 years ago. Where's the time go?
Well, thank God things have changed. So we see a lot more of it now.
A lot more. Number 28 here. Mr. McMahon is bald. This was big box office, April 2nd, 2007. WrestleMania 23, of course, was the Battle of the Billionaires. Bobby Lashley was representing Donald Trump, and he would defeat Umaga, who was representing Mr. McMahon. And of course, the stipulation was the losing billionaire has to have his head shaved. If you're watching over at somethingtowrestle.com, a bald Vince McMahon and a Vince McMahon in a hat. Boy, it just tickles me. I'm sure you were having fun with this.
Oh God, I loved it. I tried to get the hair off of Vince's head for a long time. I thought that was money and something that people would really pay to see have happen. Great moment. The interesting thing is being a heel, and from how I grew up with hair matches in Texas, was that when the heel lost their hair, you never got to see them right away. Ever.
Right.
They would always hide it. I wanted to put Vince in the mask with the wig sewn into it and everything, and have him come out in these really expensive but bad wigs until you finally got to see the bald head. And Vince felt that it was a huge promotion to get to that point, and that's what people wanted to see, and rightfully so. Today, I would agree to that 100%. Then, when more people were paying just to see certain things, I would have wanted them to pay to see the mask come off. You got to see him bald when he got his head shaved. You got to pay to see him bald again. But we gave it to him right away, and it was some fun stuff. You know, we got the bandana, the what the hell they call those things?
The do-rag?
The do-rag, yes.
Yeah.
The Vince do-rag, which was that's good stuff.
Moment number 29. We've talked about this one a bunch. When Mr. McMahon explodes. A stoic Mr. McMahon was feeling unappreciated. He steps into his limo and it explodes. His walk outside of the building that day was kind of eerie. He passed the entire roster, including important faces from the past like Gerald Briscoe and Howard Finkel and Pat Patterson. I guess this was maybe it's symbolic, like his life flashing before his eyes. And there's no commentary. And he walks to the limo in the parking lot, takes one last look around, slowly shuts the door, and boom, it explodes. And of course, you explained on the show the logic behind this move.
Let's get Vince off the show.
Because as he explained, I can't be on the show
if I'm dead. I mean, it makes sense.
I don't know. It just tickles me, man. We gotta find a way to write this guy off. What should we do? Kill him? Have we thought about just killing the character off? This isn't a soap opera. It's wrestling.
Well, that's what they do.
I know. I just love it. We're gonna kill him.
Kill him.
We never really got to see the follow up. Unfortunately, the whole Benoit tragedy happened, and we had to abandon this one. But where would this have gone, hypothetically?
He'd be dead. We would have had a funeral. And be gone. We have drunk Michael Hayes. Boss, I'm so sorry, boss. I loved you.
Dude, if we can get Michael Hayes to cry in Doot, and that's the way he weeps is with Doots, we got to make that happen somehow.
Why do you weep?
I don't weep. I'm saying, but if you could get him to weep in Doot.
Doot. You can weep with, let me chat you up.
What?
Let me chat you up.
Oh, God, chat you up. Big Raw moment number 30. Of course, 2008 is when you sort of put a button on your WWE tenure, at least for quite a while. And you had one other big moment that happened on Raw in 2008. The Ric Flair retirement celebration, the swan song of a lifetime. What a really cool way to retire Ric Flair at WrestleMania, and then the big farewell the next day and literally a who's who from Ric Flair's past comes out. This segment, just all the different personalities involved. Man, there's a lot of effort put into this segment here, is there not?
Yeah, there was
Yeah.
a lot of effort put into, Rick having his retirement and making a big deal out of it and having him go out in a first class way against an opponent like Shawn Michaels. And to do that, that big last match in Orlando, and then to kind of recognize his career the next night, bring back all of his friends from, his past throughout his career, I thought was a huge, huge moment that be very hard to replicate.
Pretty cool moment in wrestling history, and it's interesting that one of the first great moments in Raw history is the Flair loser leaves town match, and another great moment is when his career really did end, or so we thought. Some other honorable mentions across this list of 30 that didn't quite make the cut that were from Bruce's era. Bobby Heenan getting fired December 6, 1993. Mankind attacking Jim Ross June 9th, 1997. The infamous dumpster incident February 2nd, 1998. DX mocking the nation happened the same day Goldberg beat Hulk Hogan, July 6, 1998. The Rock concert, March 24th, 2003. Here's a big one. Kane unmasking, June 23rd, 2003. Maybe a one that I might have struggled with, whether or not it should be on the list. Batista turning on Evolution. Boy, that storyline did huge business. The big Batista turn happened February 21st, 2005. And at the time, a huge show. John Cena drafted to Raw June 6, 2005. Is there one that stands out above the rest as a great honorable mention? Something I didn't mention or something I did?
No, it's just, you go back and I think of little moments that are nuggets of storytelling that people miss sometimes. And that was the Mankind Jim Ross interview when Mankind finally put the mandible claw on Jim Ross, and at the end of it, and Jim was out, and Mick kind of looks at Jim and says, he's gonna need some help. He's gonna. It's those little details, those little nuggets that you don't get it sometimes at the time, but it makes all the difference in the world versus somebody playing wrestler and going out and cutting a promo and I'm going to do blah, 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 or I'm going to do this, but they forget the details.
Right.
They forget what makes this special, what makes this different, man. How am I going to make someone really feel it? And you really feel it when you are taken out of the moment. He's going to need some help.
Yes.
That's the mark of just true professional. That's one that I look at and go, yeah, that was really great stuff.
Let's do a couple fan questions, then we'll wrap this one up. Umar wants to know, Bruce, what is the most underrated moment in Raw history to you?
Most underrated. Maybe Undertaker coming out, American Badass. I think that was like one of those holy shit moments. Also, sounds like I'm all Undertaker here, but I think that some of the reemergences of the Undertaker were some really, really cool moments that happened on Raw that people go, holy fuck, that was good stuff.
No doubt. Great stuff. Here's one from Gavin. Is Shawn Michaels versus John Cena the best match in Raw history?
No, I don't think so. I think it was a damn great match. That was one when we came back from London, or we did it in London, I think it was. Excellent match, but I don't know it was necessarily the best match ever on Raw. Now you're going to say, Bruce, what was the best match ever on Raw? I don't have that either. And I think that John and Cena would probably be in that top 10. But I'd have to think long long and hard about what the best match ever was on Raw.
Brad Stanton says, besides a tragedy, what's your least favorite Raw creative moment?
Katie Vick.
Yeah. I think that's an easy one. Tony Flowers says, famously, Nitro was live for every episode, unlike Raw at the time. The WWF, of course, followed suit a little later on. Was the idea of broadcasting live for every episode of Raw ever kicked around prior to Nitro, or was the decision mainly reactionary?
No, that was always the case. That was always what we wanted to do, was be live every week. It just was cost prohibitive
Right.
to do that live every week. Once we got into it, it was like, man, we're going to have to tape some of these just to get the cost down.
Here's one from Bryant. The 1-2-3 Kid versus Bret Hart match from '94 is still one of my favorites. What are Bruce's thoughts on this match? And is this match or the match with Razor better?
I thought they were both equally great, but I thought that, they're different. They're so different. You had a heel and a baby face with Kid and Razor, and you made the 1-2-3 Kid there. With Bret, you had two baby faces, but you had the stalwart and Bret against the up and coming Kid. And I thought that Bret did a magnificent job of making Kid that.
Eric wants to know, what went into changes in Raw's theme and set changes? Did Vince just wake up one day and become tired of something, or was it meant as a fresh paint of coat on the product?
Well, I think every time that you always have to look at your product and you have to evolve with the times. No matter what it is. If it's candy bar, do you change the wrapper? Do we do something different to it? And with television shows and having the ability to adapt the way that we do, is to be able to put something new on and give the audience something that they didn't expect. And they're looking at it, and there's a feeling, if you have new graphics and a new open and all this other stuff, where people look at it and go, oh, hey, man, this is cool. This is brand new. And I'm going to watch it. Maybe something different, even if it is just the graphics and the music and the open. Change it up some. Change the look up.
Marco wants to know, who does Bruce believe has been the best Monday Night Raw performer in history? Now, Bruce, let's set aside current stuff. So we're going to say not of the modern era. We'll go 08 backwards. Those first 15 years, who was the best Monday Night Raw performer?
Steve Austin.
Yeah.
Easy.
It's hard to argue.
Yeah.
Adam Arpin says, can you talk about the segment on the Christmas Eve's Eve, December 23rd, 2002 edition of Monday Night Raw, where Sean O'Hare would return as an in-disguise mall Santa that berates children and tells them Santa isn't real? Did you get any calls from the network or sponsors over that? Could a segment like that even be pitched in today's world?
Surprised that we did it in that world then, after my previous Santa issues. I don't even remember that. I have no idea. No, we wouldn't do it today, and but I don't remember that. That may be one I blocked from my memory.
Bruce, we'll be back next week talking about the very first Royal Rumble. It went down in 1989, and you sort of alluded to it earlier that it was one of the first live shows you had programmed, and this was not a pay-per-view. It was on free television. And we'll talk about how all that came to be and why maybe it was a disaster for you that day. In the meantime, we would love to have your interactions on social media. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Prichard Show. If you're a Facebooker, you can check us out at Something To Wrestle. Of course, the best way to support the show is to support us on YouTube with a quick like and a subscribe over at somethingtowrestle.com. And we're putting up all kinds of silly and fun merch over at boxofgimmicks.com. All about Something To Wrestle. So be sure to check that out. Bruce, I don't know what I expected today, but I greatly appreciate you finding time between the 30th anniversary of Raw and the Royal Rumble. Who would have thought you and I would be recording today? Bravo, sir. Thank you.
I know, right? See, that's what I do.
All right. So listen, nobody's listening now. It's just me and you.
Okay.
You give me some betting advice. You can bet on the Royal Rumble, I've heard. I want to know, like, what number should I bet on? You know, me and my buddies, we get together and we've got a pool and we have to pick what number. Give me a pro tip. I'm definitely not recording. Nobody can hear. It's just me and you. What number should I bet on Bruce?
Rather than give it away.
Okay.
All right, because that would not be. I would go with a number between 1 and 30.
So you're telling me, Bruce, I want to make sure I got this. It's just me and you talking. Nobody can hear us. But you can guarantee me, friend to friend, man to man, mano y mano, that if I put my life savings on a number between 1 to 30, it'll definitely happen in that range. Somewhere between 1 and 30 is winning the Royal Rumble, and you mean it.
Yes.
I don't have to worry about 35 or 42 or 68. 1 through 30, that's it. We got it narrowed down.
Don't worry about those numbers. I would go stay between 1 and 30, and you can't miss.
All right. Well, I'm going to hold you to it.
16, 14, 21, 4.
All right. Boys and girls, there it is. Print it. 16, 14, 21, and 4. Those are your lottery numbers. Bet those this week. I mean, it's just me and you, Bruce, and we'll be back next week talking about the Royal Rumble 1989 right here on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard.
And I'm not giving any betting advice at all. There are only 30 participants in the Royal Rumble. And if you want one of them to win, they would probably be between 1 and 30.
I'm going with number
I had to do the disclaimer.
I mean, did you think it was nobody really thought we were giving spoilers on here? But
Well,
you know, guys get together, like, I'm going to have a house full of people in the basement watching this.
Well,
thing.
you have fun with that.
And we're all going to say, I got 12. And
the worst, I used to say to Vince, why don't we just throw all the numbers in a bag and pick them, like what would happen? And Pat and I did that one time and it sucked. Like it was horrible. He goes, that's why we don't do it. Yeah. Like, all right. Makes sense. But in the meantime, thanks for listening and rock on.
Check out the Royal Rumble tomorrow night on Peacock.